Hello and welcome to Simple Life Philosophy. I'm your host Ed Raby. This is the channel where you follow along on my journey to find a simpler philosophy of life that is both simple to understand and execute and leads to a more productive life that is also one that leads to peace of mind. I want to thank everybody for stopping by today. If you'd take the moment to subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell, that'd be awesome. If you like the video, like it, comment below, share it with your friends. I always appreciate any effort by any viewer to help me grow my channel, and soon as we can, we're going to try to become more self-reliant with this channel. And that's today's lesson. We're talking Stoic Viking meditations, and I want to talk about today one of the 9 noble virtues, number 8 of the 9 noble virtues, at least in my list, self-reliance. Self-reliance, as stated, is I learn skills and grow stronger, that I may earn my way in the world and be no burden to others. Let's break that down a little bit. The first thing that says I learn skills, okay? And I think the one thing that self-reliance does press you toward is never stop learning. I think one of the great tragedies I see with people is sometimes they begin to get to a point where it's like, what's the point? And I don't ever want to be in that position where I'm not learning something. I expect to be on my deathbed reading a book, okay, maybe one that I won't finish. I don't know. But the point of the matter is that you never want to get to a point where this isn't being exercised, where you're learning something and becoming better at something. There's an end goal to that in mind. But ultimately, self-reliance is also about self-improvement, learning skills. And the second part of it, which is to grow strong. Your issue with growing skills is to gain some strength. I think a lot of people find themselves lacking in skills and lacking in strength, and then wondering why they have so much difficulty being self-reliant or moving forward with their life. The world is constantly changing, and self-reliance demands that we change with it. And change means learning new things, learning new skills, learning how to be stronger in certain areas, to take weaknesses and turn them into strengths. One of my great challenges for me has always been to keep my learning new and fresh. And I've got 3 degrees, I've got various things going for me. The problem is, most of that stuff is stuff that only I'm interested in. And this is where self-reliance takes an interesting turn, is that there's an objective to learning skills and growing stronger. And that is that you may earn your way in the world, okay? That you don't rely on somebody else to support you. And there's an objective for that. But I want to talk about that right now. We go back to industriousness, to take joy in our labor and work, holding back nothing from the work that we pledge to do. Well, part of that is helping us to grow stronger, maybe financially, maybe physically, maybe mentally. We learn skills to improve who we are and make ourselves more valuable. I think one of the great tragedies of people these days, I think, is that they think somehow that just because they show up, they have some sort of inherent value. Like it or not, economics and the marketplace of who you are and how you market yourself is a reality. People look at you and decide what your value is. They look at your skill set. They look at what strengths and weaknesses you have. They look at your personality. They look at all the things in order to evaluate what your value is to them. And if you're hunting for a job, having more skills, being stronger in certain areas, allows you to go forward and make your own way in the world. One of the great challenges for me is being a single person right now is having one income and trying to make that work out for me. It means that in order to be self-reliant, I have to dial back what I want to do sometimes, because I want to make sure that I'm not being a burden to others, which is the last part of this virtue. The main issue of self-reliance is not to be a burden to others. Now, I want to clear up a misnomer about self-reliance, because a lot of people think that independence and being independent means that you don't need others or you don't need relationships or whatever. I've heard it said by certain women that they don't need a man. I've heard it said by men, well, I don't need a woman, or I don't need people. I'm an introverted guy, and probably, because of my autism, I always feel like I'm a fish out of water, and I feel like the odd duck in the room, um, pretty much all the time, because I don't think and perceive of things the same way everybody else does. Well, that doesn't give an excuse, and self-reliance doesn't give me an excuse to not have connections. We need each other as human beings. Okay, we are a social species, and we need to reach out to each other and help each other. Self-reliance can actually go on several levels on how not to be a burden to others. I don't want to be a burden to my family, so I work very hard to make sure that I take care of my own food needs, my own clothing, my own shelter, my own auto, all the stuff I need to live in my society. I take care of it myself because I don't want to burden the rest of my family with that. Now, if I was in a partnership with a woman, then we would be working together to be a self-reliant couple. Okay, now we take the game to a different level, to a different thing. That's kind of why I want to homestead someday. That's kind of why I'm learning gardening and other things, because I want a life where I am less reliant on other people, know for a fact that I can stand on my own, but I also realize part of achieving self-reliance means I need to rely in part on the relationships that I have with others. Self-reliance does not imply that you don't need relationships or shouldn't have them. What it implies is that you're working towards this idea of supporting yourself, earning your way, and not being a burden to other people. One of the great tragedies for me, from my perspective of the welfare system, both to those that are poor and in our country to also to those that are rich. One of the great tragedies of that is a lot of people begin to learn how to rely on that other thing. Certain companies in our country, in my country, the United States, get a kind of corporate welfare because these businesses are too important to fail. And it's like, no, because you're teaching them to be reliant on you and reliant on something else. And when we do that with other forms of welfare for the poor, I'm not against a safety net or helping people out, but there comes a point where you can be enabling to people and enabling of poverty, and not teaching people to learn skills and grow stronger, okay, so that they're not a burden to others because they make their own way in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. You're responsible for you. Self-reliance says take responsibility for yourself. Don't be a burden to others. Make your way in the world, and you're going to do that by learning new skills, being stronger, becoming more capable, and that becomes a very marketable skill. Um, I personally think that there is a danger to this, and it's what I aforementioned, that somehow you start to believe you don't need relationships with other people, you can't rely on other people. That's not what this is talking about. You can definitely rely on your partner. That's you're trying to become. If you're a husband and wife and you have kids, or another type of family structure and you have kids, you're working to have the whole family be self-reliant. Okay, if you're part of a clan, if you're part of something bigger, a part of a community, a city might try to be as self-reliant as possible. Okay, same with any level, of interaction with social beings. Companies try to be self-reliant as possible. Businesses try to be self-reliant as possible. Certain social aspects try to be self-reliant as possible. And it's really that as possible, okay? I don't think that I'm going to achieve self-reliance by myself. Okay, I'm going to achieve self-reliance by working towards something, gaining something, becoming more valuable to the people around me so that they want to pay me more, allow me to make my way in the world, and I'm not going to become a burden to others because that's what I'm going to do. There will come a day when my health will fail and things will fail, and I may very well be reliant on other people. But until that day comes, I want to make sure that I'm not a burden to others. So when it comes, people know that I worked very hard not to have that happen. And so it becomes a lot easier to take care of me because I've already set aside, resources for those eventualities. That's where you need to get. Becoming self-reliant is about loving the people around you enough that you don't want to become a burden to them. if you can avoid it. But at the same time, realizing that sometimes it's not always possible to be self-reliant, but you're trying to be have as much self-reliance as you can, because then you're really demonstrating your love to other people because you're becoming a blessing to other people rather than a burden. Well, I want to thank you for stopping by. This has been Simple Life Philosophy. I've been your host, Ed Raby. This has been our continuing journey through the 9 Noble Virtues as part of Stoic Viking meditations. And this time we've been talking about self-reliance. As you continue on your journey through life, trying to find that simple life philosophy of life, I encourage you to try out some self-reliant techniques. I mean, my goal ultimately is to be a self-reliant person, living on my own homestead, hopefully with a partner, growing my own stuff, being my own person, and having the freedom to make those choices. Freedom has a cost to it, but I'm willing to pay that price, and part of that price is self-reliance. Once again, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you like the video if you liked it. Share it with your friends. Comment on it. I'm always interested in people's comments. And most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can see more content as it is released. This has once again been your host, Ed Raby of Simple Life Philosophy, and I'm wishing you an absolutely fabulous day.